Okay, welcome to goRIA, the live stream. And this is a special episode. Today and tomorrow, I will be broadcasting and recording live at the FPA National Conference here in Phoenix, Arizona. With me today, we have a real special guest. To kick things off, we're starting off big. We have,
Nice of you to say.
yes, indeed, we have Dan Boysand, who is the chairman of the board of the CFP board itself. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. I appreciate you taking some time. Before we get into the discussion, I do want to thank our sponsor, LPL Financial. As I like to say, if you like LPL as an independent broker-dealer, you will love LPL as an RIA custodian. So we appreciate their support. Okay, let's get into the discussion here. So
Sure.
Dan, as we were talking a little bit off camera,
Yep.
goRIA is all about providing information to advisors that are looking to make the move from the broker-dealer world to the RIA world.
Yep.
And so I think you're going to have some really relevant content for us. So before we get into that level of detail, let's stay broad and talk about your experience with the CFP board, especially as the chair. What are you guys up to? I know it's a big year for you this year.
Yeah, it's a big year. The CFP board, the board of directors itself, is comprised entirely of volunteers. So I'm a practitioner. I'm one of 7 partners in an independent RIA based in Florida. Everybody else on the board, there's some RIAs on there, and there's some hybrids, and there's academics, and there's a wide variety of people on the board, all volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And our job is to make the marks valuable to the consumers and to the people that hold the marks, that have earned that right.
Right.
So it's a constant evolution, right, of changes and updates and improvements. And that's what I've experienced on the board the 4 years that I've been there. This year, some of the notable things that have happened is we created a 501c6 organization.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. So the CFP board's always been a 501c3, which is a traditional nonprofit to benefit the public. We exist to benefit the public, and we do it through CFP certification. But as a C3, you can only say, supposed to only say or emphasize things that represent benefits to the public. Right. So the messaging that we've always had, like the ad campaign we've been running for the last decade plus, has always said things like "learn more at CFP board" or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're out there, and one of our priorities is to improve access to competent and ethical financial planning and to help develop the workforce, we're in a unique position as an organization to help move the needle in the quest for talent, because we're on 200 plus campuses around the country, and we're a nonprofit. Right? It's very different than the big firms that come in and recruit, right? So we think we can make a difference there, but when we're on campus, we're not supposed to be talking or emphasizing benefits to a would-be practitioner.
When you say you're on campus, what do you mean by that?
So all the registered programs, there's over 100 degree programs for financial planning.
Right.
Now.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
You go through that educational process, then you're eligible to sit for the exam.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a little CFP school kind of thing, right?
Make that a little closer.
Yeah. So we're uniquely positioned to be able to help move the needle and build awareness on campus about careers in financial planning. It's an attractive career choice, right?
For sure.
But we're limited in what we could say. So if we were to start a credentialing group today, it would almost certainly be set up as a 501c6. That's what the IRS would require. And so we just created the 6, moved the credentialing over to the 6, and now we could be much more direct in our communication about career opportunities. And it's enabled us to, even go younger. We were exhibiting at the Girl Scouts National Convention just a few weeks ago to kind of plant a seed that this is something that can happen. This is a great career. It's not, it's not. A lot of people have the impression that it's about math or about sales, and there's certainly elements of that in the business, the career. But there's so much more to it. I mean, it is a helping profession at its core. And that's very appealing to a lot of people once they get to know financial planning. I mean, half the crowd here probably stumbled into financial planning, right?
For sure.
We're trying to make it easier for them to stumble into it.
Tell you what, I love that. I've been a CFP for close to a quarter century now. Yeah. And I didn't realize you guys were at 200 campuses. That's really awesome. Yeah. And as a girl dad myself, I love that you were at the Girl Scouts. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm so excited about that concept. Yeah. That's really good. So that's great for the CFP. I'm a CFP. We're clearly preaching to the choir here, right?
A few here, yeah, absolutely.
About 1,000 CFPs milling around here in Phoenix. What's the relevance for goRIA? Here's the reason why I was really excited that you accepted to be on the show here with us. Yeah. It is my belief, right, that consumers need to understand if they're working with a real planner or a Pinot.
Mhm.
You know what a Pinot is?
No, I probably do, but no. What? Tell me.
So a Pinot is a planner in name
Oh,
only.
yeah, okay. Yeah. Sure.
Now, I came up with that about a month ago, and I'm trying to make it a thing. So Pinot, planner in name
That's very
only.
clever.
And we need to do whatever we can to help clients and consumers understand when they're dealing with a real advisor that's really giving them planning, or someone that's just selling a lot of product with the highest possible commission.
Sure.
Now, how does that relate to going RIA? It's my contention that as clients become more and more aware that there are advisors that work as fiduciaries and ones that don't, who in the world would work with a non-fiduciary once they understand there's a difference?
Mhm.
And I believe as more and more consumers understand the difference between a fiduciary advisor and a non-fiduciary advisor, that's going to really accelerate that. I'm going to call it a land rush from the broker dealer space to the RIA space. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Well, there's definitely been a movement away from traditional sales organizations to a more advisory approach. And that has absolutely spilled over into a full-fledged movement out of the broker world into the RIA world. I mean, I did it 23 years ago. I gave up my FINRA licenses. And I got to tell you, I didn't instantly become smarter, and I didn't instantly become more ethical. What I did was I limited the conflicts of interest that I had to a much more visible set that I felt was more manageable. So instead of having two pain in the butt regulators, I only have one, right? So that's a little bit that was the discussion in my head.
For
right?
sure.
So a lot of people want to paint it as this moral problem, right? All salespeople are scum and stuff. That's just not correct. I mean, most of the people that are in brokerage business are good, hardworking people trying to do the best for their client. But it's a system that's very opaque generally, right? And clients don't want that. And a lot of clients don't know what a fiduciary is, in that if you ask them what's a fiduciary, they won't give you a good definition.
I don't think many advisors can either.
Correct. But if you ask them what are the characteristics of the person you want advising you, everything they say is going to be probably fiduciary. Right?
That's right.
I want somebody that's helping me, focused on my needs, puts my interests first, et cetera, and isn't getting a kickback somewhere or has some perverse incentive to steer me in a direction that's not good for me, right? They'll use that kind of language.
Absolutely. So, we've been in the business, sounds like about the same time, as I could tell by the hair.
Yeah, that's the point now.
But here's a story I like to share when it comes to fiduciary. So I started off as a stock broker, like calling people up, selling them stocks,
Yeah.
which I can hardly even imagine anymore. But that's what I did back in New York City 30 years ago. And 4 years into my career, I was like, you know what, the stock thing, it was fun. I loved doing the research and it was exciting. But I really wanted to be more holistic. So I went cold turkey from selling stocks to going right into fee-based financial planning and asset management, got my CFP about a quarter century ago. And when I got that CFP, I was so proud to tell prospective clients, hey, I'm working as a fiduciary with you 25 years ago.
Mm.
And what do you think the most common response to that statement was?
Okay.
Huh? Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got an office, you got a tie, it's cool.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, fast forward a quarter century, I'll tell you this. I would say at least one out of three prospective clients that come into my office, first question, are you a fiduciary?
Yes, we get that question far more now than we did 5 years, 10 years, 20 years ago. And there's multiple reasons for that happening. It goes back to this organization, frankly. Back in 07 was when the case was decided against the exemption from the Advisor Act.
The Merrill Lynch rule.
The so-called Merrill Lynch rule,
Yeah.
right. The FPA sued the SEC and won. And that really brought the whole thing of fiduciary up to the forefront. CFP board came in that time and formally required fiduciary responsibility when doing financial planning. And just a couple of years ago, they added fiduciary standard to giving any kind of financial advice as is defined by CFP board. And that includes a lot of activities that have been traditionally sales. The government's not doing that. But if you're going to be a CFP, you need to approach your clients as a fiduciary, and that's the way you need to conduct your business. It's not that challenging, I think, in some ways, in that it's a natural progression of what most people want to do with their clients anyway, right? They want to be clear about what they're doing, what they're not doing, where their financial incentives lie. They want to bring the conflicts of interest out and expose them, and get informed consent and manage them for the client's benefit. That's how you run a good business. So I don't think
Absolutely.
there's a conflict there, but it does get people riled up because there's additional issues that go with that, including some of their employers are not cooperative, but a lot of them are. A lot of them are getting better and better at that.
Absolutely. And something I will say, and I always talk about the difference between broker dealers and RIAs, and I would put this under the good news category that even a lot of the broker dealers are starting to become more like RIAs, and I think that's a good thing.
Right.
So my question might be, at what point do we really have that line of demarcation? I think the broker dealer model is a fantastic product delivery model. Very good.
Yeah.
But I think it's a horrible advice delivery model. And there should be a much more clear line of demarcation. What do you think?
It would be beneficial for the consumer if it was easier for them to tell. So, and frankly, what CFP board has done with adding the fiduciary duty for all financial advice to their certificates is it doesn't really clear things up for the consumer because we're not a regulator. All we control is who uses the marks. So so the good news for marks holders and people pursuing the marks is when you have these things, it is a signal to the public that you've met some competency standards that are significant, and you're agreeing to a code of behavior, of ethics and conduct that is separate and higher than what exists under the law. Because the law allows us to do the so-called hat switching, right?
Right.
Where you're a fiduciary when you're doing this, but you're not a fiduciary when you're over. I could now become a salesman and sell you something. And the disclosure requirements on that, they're not great, right? Disclosure only goes so far anyway, right? So the hope is from CFP board is at least with the certificates, there'll be more attention paid to the conflicts and how they're managed and gaining that informed consent. And, if it comes down to you selling something that's not good for your client, as far as CFP board is concerned, you can't sell it, right? So hopefully we'll drag the rest of the world along with that line of thinking for people that are in the advice business or holding out as being in the advice business.
And I think that's what's going to have to happen. Right? It's going to be an education thing. Yeah. So the more people understand the need to ask your advisor, are you a fiduciary? Are you a fiduciary all the time? Right? Sure. And you mentioned this, the whole idea of like the two hats. And I've got such a pet peeve about that. Right? Yeah. So what does that mean? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm a fiduciary. Yeah. Tuesday, Thursday, watch out. Anything goes. I'll start selling you this. I'll sell you that. Makes no difference. And I think that's wrong. And I think the work that you guys are doing at the CFP board is really meaningful to help clients and prospective clients discern between, as I like to call, the real planners and the Pinos.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do uphold our standards. We have a whole process when we're made aware of by a client complaint or whatever means that there's a potential violation of those codes. We investigate it, and there's a process. It's a peer-driven process. People that are accused, or they stand in judgment by other CFPs,
right?
The Discipline Ethics Commission. It's not staff making these decisions about whether the code was violated and what the sanctions will be. And that's unique among designations. I think that's why you're talking to me and not the chairman of some other group with a designation, because the CFP has just gotten to a level.
For sure.
The 50th anniversary of the first CFP class, 2023.
Yep.
Next year we'll hit 100,000 CFPs.
Wow.
Which sounds great, but that's a pittance to what the American public needs to have out there available to them.
But is it about 1 out of 5 then, give or take?
It depends on how you count.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so 1 out of 3 to 1 out of 5, depending on the source of the number of advisors,
right,
or certificates. So there's a lot going on there. But for people who go into a relationship with their client with that whole fiduciary mindset, and they have the right processes in place. Okay, here's the conflict. I'm going to tell you about it. We're going to talk about it. Get informed consent. If you can't avoid it, manage it, right, for the client's benefit. If you're doing that, which is what most people do when they run good businesses that succeed.
For sure.
It works great. It works fine. And I you could say the government needs to come in and intervene, change the laws, and I agree that would be helpful, because there are a lot of people that present themselves as fiduciaries but aren't going to act in that way.
Absolutely.
But really, it's the marketplace that's going to be the final arbiter of the whole thing. And we've seen the trend more and more toward RIA and that fiduciary responsibility. And hopefully it will expand as the industry becomes more holistic, more like the profession, that trend will continue. Because to us, you can't build a profession on any other standard other than the fiduciary standard.
Without question, especially for what we do, right? I mean, accountants, lawyers, can you imagine a doctor getting paid more to prescribe this versus that? It's ludicrous.
Yeah. Well, so the law, right? The moral underpinning, they're very well known for their pro bono work, right?
Yeah.
The moral underpinning for that, as I understand it from all the lawyers I talked to, is the law touches everyone, but not everyone can practice law.
Yeah.
Right? And you can make an argument about financial planning that way too. Money touches everybody, but not everybody can really be a financial planner. Right?
That's right.
So, I mean, that's one reason we're behind pro bono. That's also the access issue, right? It helps get more people, more Americans some help. So we made a resolution this year, by the way, in July, formally encouraging CFP certificates to do 20 hours of pro bono a year.
Great.
Encouraging their employers to help make that happen. So not a requirement. Lawyers aren't required. They got 20-hour encouragement too. So, but my hope is that we'll be talking in a few years, and people, just as a matter of course, they'll talk about the weather. They'll be talking about what'd you do for your pro bono? How'd you get your 20 hours?
That's right.
Because when you get into that, man, there's some great stories. There's great people working at all these fabulous little nonprofits all over the country. CFP professionals everywhere helping them out. It's really very uplifting to talk to people that do pro bono.
That's right.
Really excited about it.
Yeah, I actually used to chair and still do actually co-chair the pro bono for the FPA Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, it is so satisfying to do, and it's great for everyone. It's really great for the younger advisors because it gives them that entree into how does the process work.
Yep.
And it's just a great way for the more senior advisors to give back. So it's all good.
I'm really glad you mentioned that because the little plug for the Foundation of Financial Planning
Sure.
was on that board for a few years too. They just came out with a report within the last 2 weeks actually about pro bono and the business case for it. And what you're talking about, it really is very helpful in developing younger or newer planners with their interpersonal skills, as well as the technical and all the other feel good things about helping somebody that wouldn't get help otherwise. So there's a big, very strong business case for organizations of all sizes to really be supportive of pro bono.
Sounds good. And that sounds like a good place to wrap up for today. So Dan Mosan from CFP, thank you for all the work you guys are doing over there.
Thank you.
I'm a proud CFP certificant for the past quarter century and love it. And I really do think it's meaningful as we talk about going RIA, putting a spotlight on real planners versus these Pinos. And again, this is nothing against the broker-dealer world. It's a great product delivery mechanism, but for advice, which is what I think most people would probably want, the RIA space is very well suited for that. So we appreciate you're taking some time to share some thoughts.
Sure, anytime. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention there are lots of really good planners that do have broker-dealer affiliations.
Absolutely. Some of my best friends are at broker-dealers.
I can't say that. That's terrible. No, but it's true. There's a lot of great planners that they have broker-dealer affiliations, insurance licenses, and they do great work for their clients.
No doubt.
We just need more of that. And the reason that I know that they're good and I respect them so much is because they think and act like a fiduciary, even if the law is not going to require them to do so.
That's right. And as we see more of this trend toward this, we talked about this earlier, the broker-dealer world acting more as RIAs. Yeah. And I think a lot of these big broker-dealers are going to turn into just really big RIAs, and that's good too.
Could be, yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And so again, we're going to be broadcasting here live from the FPA National Conference in Phoenix. And we're going to be talking to a few more people today and a few more tomorrow. So stay tuned. We're going to pop up periodically throughout the next couple of days. So on behalf of goRIA, fueled by investment news, I'm Chuck Vela, and thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you soon. Take care.